Welcome back to For Goodness Sake, where as a former Mormon, I take a look at the good things that I carry with me into my new, more secular worldview. My name's Tom, and today's topic is Christ-like leadership. A couple of days ago, I had the opportunity to go through the open house at the Saratoga Springs Temple, which was a fascinating experience to go through, having left the church now. But one of the things that really struck me is the way that Jesus Christ was depicted in the various paintings. They have a lot of really beautiful paintings, a lot of great landscapes, but they had several portraits of Jesus Christ, and he's always portrayed as kind and loving, reaching out and being generous and loving towards children and adults that he's teaching. And then the other thing that's often portrayed is the suffering Christ, where he's portrayed in agony, suffering for our sins. In LDS theology, we tend to emphasize his suffering in the Garden of Gethsemane, but of course, there's also the suffering on the cross that all Christians acknowledge. And here's the crazy thing, is I think that both of these things have good that I want to hang on to as I leave Mormonism. And I want to explain what I think is good about these two portrayals. Basically, when we think about Jesus Christ, we think about him as being super kind and super loving and sort of preaching this gospel of meekness, humility, and love. As a Mormon, one of my very favorite paintings of Jesus Christ that I love so much, to the point where my graduation gift when I graduated from high school from my parents was a really nice framed version of this portrait of Jesus Christ. And it's a picture of him just looking off to the side and being meek and calm and contemplating. And you can really just hear him saying, "Blessed are the meek," in this portrait. That's what it always meant to me. Now, I think there's a lot of debate around the historical Jesus. What was he really like? What did he really say? I'm not going to get into that. I don't think we really have any idea, almost at all. I think that the historical Jesus probably existed, but that's probably about as much as we can say with confidence, because all of the information we have is from incredibly unreliable sources. But again, the important thing for this discussion is the fact that as Mormons, we are taught to think of Jesus as this loving, generous, meek individual. That says that we value those attributes. And to me, that's what's really important, is that it's important for us to be loving and meek and kind and generous. And when we say that Jesus is all those things, what we're really saying is that we love people who have those qualities. And I think when we talk about Christ-like leadership, we're talking about leaders who are humble and meek and inspire you to follow them through their love rather than demanding it through fear, aggression. Now, I want to talk about the suffering Christ, whether in Gethsemane or on the cross, because I think what this really embodies is the idea of a leader sacrificing his or herself for the betterment of the group or the individuals that are following. And I think that that's a valuable concept. The logic of the atonement itself, the idea that somehow the suffering of Christ saves us from sin or saves us from cosmic justice, has completely fallen apart for me. So I don't think that there's anything about the suffering of Christ that directly helps me in any way. As a matter of fact, I don't even think that there's really anything to be saved from. The whole concept of sin itself has really fallen apart for me. But in any case, I do think that it's worth holding on to this idea that leaders should be willing to sacrifice their own comfort, their own convenience. They should be willing to put themselves on the line for the betterment of the group, to really put themselves in the trenches with the people that they are asking to make a sacrifice. There's nothing worse than the idea of a king sending his troops into battle to die for the betterment of the kingdom, while the king himself sits in comfort and just gets status updates about the battle. What you really want to see is that king going to battle with the troops. The image of the cross is not something that's used as much in Mormonism specifically, but in Christianity in general, the cross really captures this stark contrast, right? Because crucifixion was the method of fear for the Romans to maintain control. So it's literally a symbol of how the Romans were striking fear in the hearts of people in order to get them to comply. While Christ on the cross is a symbol of him sacrificing himself for their benefit. Again, I don't even think that Jesus himself thought of his death as benefiting people in any particular way. I think he was probably disappointed to die, like most of us would be. But in any case, the way that we interpret it now in Christianity, right, is to think of it as a self-sacrifice on our behalf. And I think that this idea is very powerful. And as leaders, we can still learn from this, that we need to embody this ideal of putting ourselves on the line, sacrificing ourselves for the benefit of others. So in that way, I think it's good to hang on to some Christ-like leadership principles, both in terms of kindness, generosity, love, and also in terms of putting ourselves in battle with the troops, so to speak. I think that those are ideas worth hanging on to that Christianity has brought to us. And as we hang on to these good things, we do it for goodness sake.